Hi everybody, this is a follow-up to my video about making distilled water with solar energy. 24 doctors with the courage to tell the truth about distilled water. Distilled water is the water which runs through all water-based life forms. Everybody needs to switch their drinking water to distilled water. According to the writer of this article, a half a gallon a day minimum, most preferably a gallon, especially during a recovery period. Doctor number 1, here is what Dr. Alan Bannock says. Distilled water is the greatest solvent on earth. It is the only water that can be taken into the body without damage to the tissues. What we as scientists and the public have never realized is that minerals collected in the body from water are all inorganic minerals which cannot be assimilated or digested by the body. The only minerals that the body can utilize are the organic minerals from fruits and vegetables. All other types of minerals are foreign substances to the body and must be disposed of or eliminated. Today, many progressive doctors prescribe distilled water to their patients. All kidney machines operate on distilled water. Alan E. Bannock, MD, author, The Choice is Clear. Doctor number 2, here is what Dr. Paul Bragg says. The greatest damage done by inorganic materials, minerals that is, hard, plus waxy cholesterol and salt, is to the small arteries and other blood vessels of the brain, which is 75% water. Hardening of the arteries and calcification of blood vessels starts on the day you start taking inorganic chemicals and minerals from tap water into our bodies. When distilled water enters the body, it leaves no residue of any kind. It is free of salts and sodium. It is the most perfect water for the healthy functioning of the kidneys, 83% water. It is the perfect liquid for the blood, 83% water. The ideal liquid for the efficient functioning of the lungs, 86% water. Stomach, liver, 85% water, and all other vital organs. Why? Because it is free of all inorganic minerals. It is so pure that all liquid drug prescriptions are formulated with distilled water. Dr. Paul Bragg, ND, PhD, from his book, The Shocking Truth About Water. Excuse me. Doctor number 3, here's what Dr. James Balch says. There is only one water, and that is clean, steam distilled water. No other substance on our planet does so much to keep us healthy and get us well as water does. Dietary Wellness, 1993, Dr. James Balch, MD. Doctor number 4, here's what Dr. C.W. DeLacy Evans says. Used as a drink, distilled water is absorbed directly into the blood, the solvent properties of which it increases to such an extent that it will keep in solution salts already existing in the blood, prevent their undue deposit in various organs and structures, favor their elimination by the various excreta, and tend to remove these earthly compounds which have already accumulated in the body. There is no doubt as to the high value of distilled water, used freely as a retarder of the ossifying conditions which appear to constitute the condition of old age. C.W. DeLacy, MD, in his book, How to Prolong Life. Doctor number 5, here's what Dr. Teofilio de la Torre says. Instead of drinking the hard water of springs or the chlorinated water of the cities, it will be to our advantage to drink distilled water to prevent calcification of the body. Doctor number 6, here's what Dr. Charles McFerrin says. Distilled water is empty water, a hungry water, a water capable of absorbing body poisons. You have had the experience of trying to use an old post office blotter on the desk. Everybody had used it, and it is so full of ink that it will not suck up any more. So it is with a full water, a water full of chlorine, aluminum, etc. Such water does not have the capacity of absorbing body impurities. Dr. Charles McFerrin, writing in the 1955 issue of Nature's Path. Doctor number 7, here's what Dr. Alexander Graham Bell says. Dr. Alexander Graham Bell, inventor of the telephone, recognized the health value of distilled water and claimed that its daily use prolonged his life. Afflicted and bedridden with sciatica, Dr. Bell could find no relief for the pain. The attack came just as he was investigating the deposit of salts in the human system. A well-known scientist had written a book in which he said that old age comes from such deposits, and that the ills of advanced years were due to the lack of their elimination. He believed that when such deposits went to the joints, man had rheumatism. When they went to the kidneys, he had kidney trouble and stones in the urinary organs. And when they lodged in the arteries, they produced what is called hardening of the arteries. In the same way, when such deposits coated the nerves, they caused sciatica. Dr. Bell wrote, "I knew that distilled water was pure. I thought that if I drank plenty of it, I could get rid of some of the salts that were covering my sciatic nerves. I tried drinking it, and it worked like a charm. I have kept up with my drinking of distilled water, and I attribute my almost perfect health largely to it." Dr. Alexander Graham Bell. Isn't that interesting? Excuse me. Doctor number 8. Here's what Dr. Robert W. Flinchbot says. The evidence that distilled water acts as a solvent within the body, dissolving the inorganic mineral deposits, is very important. A growing body of evidence suggests that distilled water dissolves and removes these disease-causing minerals and flushes out the hundreds of dangerous chemicals that have been taken into the body as well. Distilled water is not only free of pollutants, but it apparently helps remove them as well from the cells of the body, thus purifying the body so that it can function as it should. Dr. Robert W. Flinchbot from Pure Water is Life. Doctor number 9. Here is what Dr. David C. Kennedy says. Even tap water invariably contains a variety of poisons such as chlorine, chloramine, asbestos, pesticides, fluoride, copper, mercury, and lead. The best way to remove all of these contaminants is by distilling. David C. Kennedy, DDS. How to Save Your Teeth, Toxic-Free Preventative Dentistry. Doctor number 10. Here's what Dr. Robert D. Willix Jr. says. If you decide on bottled water, make sure it's distilled. However, in the long run, you'll save money if you clean your water at home. It's more convenient than hauling gallon jugs from the store. The gold standard for purifying your water is a system that distills your water and filters it. You have the comfort of knowing there is no chlorine, fluoride, bacteria, viruses, pesticides, or lead. You get nothing but H2O. Robert D. Willocks, Jr., MD, Maximum Health. So in this case, when we distill the water, we should still filter the water to get some other things out of the water. Doctor number 11, here's what Dr. John Yaya Moy-Rianis says. The home distiller is the best method and also the best way to get distilled water. It is the only reliable home water purification for taking fluoride out of the water. So that's how you get the fluoride out of the water. And that's from his book, The Aging Factor. Doctor number 12, here's what Dr. Charles Mayo says. Water hardness, inorganic minerals in solution, is the underlying cause of many, if not all, of the diseases resulting from poisons in the intestinal tract. These hard minerals pass from the intestinal walls and get into the lymphatic system, which delivers all of its products to the blood, which in turn distributes to all parts of the body. This is the cause of much human disease. Dr. Charles Mayo of the Mayo Clinic. Doctor number 13. Here's what Dr. Peter A. Lodwick says. The only type of water that seems to be fit for consumption is distilled water, which is water that is absolutely free of any minerals or chemicals. Distilled water is made pure by first being heated to the point of evaporation so that all of the impurities are left behind. Then the water vapor is condensed. The process results in water that is in its purest form. Distillation is the single most effective method of water purification. Peter A. Lodwick, MD, a diabetic doctor, looks at diabetes. Doctor number 14. Here's what Dr. Norman W. Walker says. People who say that distilled water leaches minerals out of the body are therefore correct only in this respect. This is only 50% of the truth. It is virtually impossible for distilled water to separate minerals, which have become an integral part of the cells and tissues of the body. Distilled water collects only the minerals which remain in the body, minerals discarded from natural water and from the cells. The minerals which the natural water originally collected from its contact with the earth and the rocks. Such minerals, having been rejected by the cells of the body, are of no constructive value. On the contrary, they are debris which distilled water is capable of picking up and eliminating from the system. Dr. Norman W. Walker from Water Can Undermine Your Health. Doctor number 15. Here's what Dr. John Christopher says. Water is so valuable to the entire system of the human body that it is wise to use only the best. Use pure steam distilled water for health and well-being. Dr. John Christopher from Regenerative Diet. Doctor number 16. Here's what Dr. Paul Kahn says. When one drinks impure, dirty water, the body acts as a filter, trapping a percentage of the solids suspended in the water. A filter eventually becomes clogged and useless, fit only to be thrown away. The human body might well face the same fate, but the basic point that only distilled water avoids mineral buildups in the body is an inarguable one. The deposits which build up in a tea kettle from repeated use are traces of minerals left behind as the water evaporates. Distilled water leaves no such traces. in a tea kettle or in a human body. It is true that in most hospitals, distilled water is used for newborn infants. Distilled water is prescribed for heart patients in many cardiac wards. And it is true that kidney stones and other mineral-like buildups in the body are much more common in the areas where the drinking water has high levels in inorganic minerals, and distilled water has none of those at all. It is without a doubt the best water available to man, and the only pure water available in our waste-laden society. Dr. Paul Kahn from Not a Drop to Drink, Doctor number 17. Here's what Dr. Michael Colgan says. The only water likely to be clean is distilled water. Dr. Michael Colgan from the New Nutrition Medicine for the Millennium. Doctor number 18. Here's what Dr. Raymond H. Bishop Jr. says. Distilled water is safe to drink and should have no adverse effects on your health. Distillation merely removes most of the dissolved materials which are found in all natural waters. Raymond H. Bishop, Jr., MD, Major General Commander, Medical Corps, Department of the Army, U.S. Army Health Services Command. Here's what Frank N. Hepburn, USDA, says. There is nothing about distilled water that would make it harmful for the body. It may be helpful to remember that distilled water is the only water available for crews of naval vessels at sea. Frank N. Hepburn, Chief Nutrient Data Research Branch, United States Department of Agriculture, Consumer Nutrition Division. Here's what Louis Pasteur says. We drink 90% of our illnesses. Louis Pasteur. Here's what Nick Pavlica says. I have been drinking distilled water since 1981, almost half of my life, and given the choice, would not drink any other type of water. I recommend distilled water to all my friends and relatives and would not do so if I didn't think it is one of the very healthiest things a person can do. After a full body scan, the doctor told me that I have the cleanest arteries of anyone he has examined of my age, and I have never had a broken bone in my body, contrary to quack assertions that calcium and other minerals are leached from the body. Nick Pavlica, Director, H2O Labs Limited. Doctor number 19. Here's what Dr. Edward M. Wagner says. Chronic fatigue syndrome sufferers are instructed to drink distilled water. Dr. Edward M. Wagner from How to Stay Out of the Doctor's Office. Here's what author Vicki Glassburn says. Distilled water is the purest form available. Distilled water helps to excrete excessive heavy metals from the body. Vicki Glassburn from Who Killed Candida. Well, that's great because we need to get those heavy metals out because we're getting them into us from chemtrails. Here's what author Jonathan King says. If properly maintained, distillers provide a constant supply of high-quality water. Filters and reverse osmosis units, on the other hand, are their best when first installed, and efficiency invariably declines with use. Jonathan King, author of Troubled Water. Here's what Jack Bell, American Medical Association, says. To the best of our knowledge, there would not be any adverse health effects from the continued ingestion of distilled water. Jack A. Bell, Assistant Director, May 17, 1985, American Medical Association, Division of Personal and Public Health Policy. And Doctor number 20, here's what Dr. Clifford C. Dennison says. There's no absolute medical proof that drinking distilled water will cure arthritis, heart disease, high blood pressure, hardening of the arteries, or any other dozens of infirmities that humans suffer. There's no absolute proof that drinking distilled water will remove kidney and gallstones, reduce cataracts, and cure emphysema. But there are hundreds of case histories of people who have enjoyed success in alleviating or overcoming these health problems when they began drinking distilled water exclusively. Dr. Clifford C. Dennison, Ed. D., an associate professor at Lee College in Cleveland, Tennessee, and a lifelong water researcher and expert. Doctor number 21, here's what Dr. Ron Kennedy says. Now, as to the argument that distilled water leaches out minerals, this is true, and this is exactly what we want it to do. The minerals it leaches out are of the unusable ionic form, and we want these to leave the body rather than be deposited and cause disease. Distilled water does not leach out significant amounts of biologically available minerals because these are quickly taken up by the body on an as-needed basis. If they are present in excess, then they are filtered through the kidneys, and this is exactly what needs to happen with all things which are in excess in circulation. Distilled water cleanses the body through promoting healthy kidney function. Ron Kennedy, M.D. Excuse me. Hopefully I can get rid of that with drinking distilled water. Doctor number 22. For those that father Dr. Andrew Weil, who has been drinking distilled water for years, here is a quote of his. You can try drinking bottled distilled water if you like. It's water that has been turned into steam, so its impurities are left behind. The steam is then condensed to make pure water. The process of distillation kills and removes virtually all bacteria, viruses, heavy metals, and other organic and inorganic contaminants. Once distilled water, the water is as pure as water can reasonably be. While it's true that distillation removes minerals as it eliminates various other contaminants from water, I don't feel this is a problem. We get our minerals from food, not water. As far as acidity goes, distilled water is close to a neutral pH and has no effect on the body's acid-base balance. Distilled water is safe to drink and the kind of water I use myself. Doctor number 23. Here's Dr. Hanley's article about distilled water, The Importance of Distilled Water in Aging, by Dr. Chester Hanley. As our body begins to age, there are several things that happen. Cells don't produce as well. The body doesn't digest as well. The body does not absorb as well, and the body does not eliminate as well. And areas of the body begin to feel pain and have sore spots that we never had before. One of the major causes of pain is the overconsumption of grain in older people. It is softer, easier to eat, and appears to be more easily digested. Well, the true reality is that it is no benefit to the aging body at all and leaves an acidic residue that gets deposited in the joints, which is the #1 reason for arthritic pain. Many years ago, when the writer was doing research on distilled water, they discovered that contrary to all the stories out there, distilled water does not take a single thing out of the body that the body needs. It never takes anything out of a cell. Everything that is cellularly locked remains within the body, but it is the greatest tool in the world for cleaning out the bloodstream. which is the only function water really has to wash out, cleanse, and purify the bloodstream. Remember that the bloodstream is primarily an organ of transport. People think of it as a liquid rather than an organ, but it is an organ. It transports nutrients, oxygen, and red blood cells throughout the body and carries waste products and carries away waste products and carbon dioxide. Distilled water has been evaporated into a vapor, split apart into a molecule of hydrogen and oxygen, turning them into a gas that rises up in the atmosphere, then cooled back down and condensed back into water. The same process happens in a distillery when it distills water. It heats up the water into a gas, all the impurities are left behind, all the waste products are left behind, then it is condensed and turned back into pure water and becomes the ultimate pure water because of one very important factor that is not present in any other water. It is molecularly unstable. Boy, that's a hard word to say. It means that when it goes into your bloodstream, it breaks apart easier and latches on to debris, waste products, and unwanted materials that are floating around in your bloodstream. It is also one of the best ways there is for reducing blood pressure. The writer made up 2 charts years ago when they were doing their studies on body detoxification with distilled water from 1865 to 1965. In 1865, diseases that ranked in the high 30s and low 40s became the first 4 killers in 1965. And they were all cardiovascular. They then made another chart from 1865 to 1965 to show the reduction in the use of drinking rainwater. The 2 charts were virtually biometrically opposite. As people quit drinking rainwater, cardiovascular diseases went up. When the blood vascular system is clean, you have less headaches, you have less pain, you have more oxygen and nutrients available for the body, and more healing capacity for the body. It has been almost 20 years ago now that a man came down to the writer's office that had arthritis so bad he could hardly get out of a straight back chair. His pain was excruciating. We put him on the detoxification program, took him off of all grain in his diet, instructed him to eat only fruit, vegetables, protein and meat products, and put him on distilled water every half hour while he was awake. It is hard to believe. A month later, this same man was out working in his garden, having the time of his life. The writer can't emphasize enough the importance of drinking distilled water for cleansing the bloodstream, for reducing arthritic pain and lowering blood pressure. It has also been known to reduce cholesterol and triglycerides. In fact, the only effect on the body is health. There are rules of thumb on how much water to drink. The rule of thumb on a normal day is 1/2 your body weight in ounces per day. If you are sweating and exerting yourself, you should drink more, not less. We have a tendency to grab pop, coffee, Kool-Aid, and juices, but we need to get back to the habit of grabbing distilled water. So based on my body weight, which is approximately, let's just say 130, I'm not quite that, but say 130, then I should drink 65 ounces per day. Very easy to remember, very easy to remember. To give you an example of what this means, if you're a man and you weigh 200 pounds, you should be drinking a minimum of 100 ounces of distilled water throughout the day. There is an interesting side note for people that like to study. Job, which is the oldest book of the Bible, the writer believes, it is in the 36th chapter, said God took up the water, distilled it, and poured it out abundantly on man. The logical argument is, who knows better what we need than the Creator, and He gave us distilled water. For those that follow the Bible, the water God chooses to pour out abundantly upon man is distilled water. Job 36:27. For He draws up the drops of water. He distills His mist in the rain which the skies pour down and drop upon man abundantly. Wow, interesting. Doctrine number 24. And finally, the writer wants to share with us the first 4 pages of a book from the early part of the last century, written by Dr. Hanisch, The Distilled Water Cure, by Ottoman Hanisch, MD, DD, printed in 1946 by the British Mazdaznan Association. Oftentimes the blood becomes tainted and needs to be purified. There is only one way of washing the blood, and that is by means of dead water, undiluted water, distilled water which contains no life organism, chemicals, or similar substances. It has to be dead water. Water condensed from steam. Distilled water, by virtue of its weight, affects a 1-pound pressure upon the minerals and acids which clog the bloodstream. It pressures them right through the system. Even in a short time, it eliminates appreciable quantities of impurities from the blood. There is no hard and fast rule as to how to take the cure. It may be taken quickly or slowly, hot or cold. It is left entirely to the individual to decide, according to temperament and physical condition. The main thing is to obtain the necessary pressure and to ensure that 2 cups are always taken at one time. Well, isn't that interesting? A total of 7 pints per day. This is quite easy of an accomplishment if the quantity is systematically regulated as follows. On awakening, take 2 cups. Another 2 cups shortly before breakfast. 2 cups in the middle of the morning. 2 more 20 to 30 minutes before the midday meal. 2 cups in the middle of the afternoon. Another 2 cups 20 to 30 minutes before dinner. And the last 2 cups in the evening shortly before retiring. If desired, 2 more portions may be taken, one 2 hours after lunch and the other 2 hours after dinner. As regards to eating and drinking, it is matter of individual choice. Nothing is forbidden, and there is no need for fasting nor privation. One may eat and drink according to the individual needs. One eats only moderately after having taken 2 cups of distilled water. The principle of the cure must be maintained 7 times per day, 2 cups of water at one time, making sure to take 2 cups shortly before each meal. It will soon be discovered that even at breakfast time, one eats very moderately after having taken 2 cups of distilled water. After 3 days, one observes a loss of taste for this and that, and quite different desires assert themselves for dishes which one may have previously disliked. Day by day, one eats less, soon only half, and then only a third of what one normally takes. After 3 days, the complexion becomes clearer and more rosy, and a feeling of lightness is experienced. After 2 to 3 weeks, the eyes become clearer and more penetrating. One is able to think more clearly and one becomes less easily irritated. After 3 weeks, the thinner ones become a little stouter and the stouter ones become a little thinner. In cases of sufferings of an acute nature, the cure need last but 3 weeks. In other cases, 5 weeks. If the cure be resorted to for from 5 to 12 weeks in succession, 65% of all ailments become eliminated, and the other 35% will be eliminated if one continues afterward with a correct diet. By the time one has almost completed the cure, one has become so accustomed to the drinking of distilled water that one likes. And just a second. So accustomed to the drinking of distilled water that one likes and takes regularly a couple of cups before each evening meal. The adoption of this habit wards off all disease. The body is already composed of 80% water, and by adding thereto 2 cups of water regularly each evening, all acids and crystals are eliminated there from in a natural way, and the bloodstream is not burdened thereby. 3 highly important effects are assured through the water cure. The blood becomes washed and made free of all foreign substances. It ejects the proper working of the individual organs and thereby that of the whole organism. It provides a youthful freshness in a measure that often youth does not possess, as the whole glandular system becomes normalized, thereby increasing the brain power, and life becomes more joyous. Always remember, therefore, to resort at interval to the water cure. If feeling unwell, start again for a few days or even weeks. Take the water cure as a serious treatment for 5 to 7 weeks every 3, 5, 7, 9 years, as it purifies the whole organism, and, becoming thus renewed, continuous progress is assured. Distilled water is therefore one of the greatest values for the individual as well as humanity at large. After a few weeks on the cure, one learns to choose the food that nature requires to build up the system. One begins to live anew. Even after 3 days, the purification and renovation of the bloodstream is noticeable. One does not necessarily gain or lose weight by taking the cure. The purer the blood, the more normal the cells of the body become. If one gains too much weight, one simplifies the diet by discarding butter and oils. The great advantage of the water cure is that one need ask no questions. One just takes it. Everything comes lay itself so long as one resorts thereto. As a result of the water cure, one begins to think for oneself instead of asking questions. One becomes a thinking human being. The cure is so simple, one cannot make a mistake, not even a mistake in a diet. The wonderful feature of it is that no effects are required, and yet maximum benefits are obtained. Moreover, one is sure of the expected results, whether one resorts to it for a weak stomach, indigestion, dyspepsia, constipation, or a liver which does not function normally, or because the kidneys are affected, for the lungs, nerves, heart trouble, change of life, or for growths. All ailments have to give way to distilled water, and in the ordinary way nothing needs to be added thereto. Now it says here how to start acquiring distilled water. There's a lot of suggestions. You can make your own, so I'm going to attach a copy of my video where I made some distilled water, and I'm still making it. And now it says here, I'm just going to continue in the next video here. Okay, how to start acquiring distilled water. You can buy it in plastic gallon jugs at first. Walmart tends to sell the best tasting, not because they make it the best, but because they move it through the most of it, and it spends the least amount of time picking up plastic flavor. Small drugstores tend to taste the worst because it spends the most time sitting around. Do not worry that you are contaminating yourself with plastic. Yes, you will taste the plastic because it is running over your taste buds, but remember that plastic is magnetically bonded with that water, and it will pass out through your excretory channels, of which urine is not included. The writer has numerous friends who have been on plastic jug distilled water for months and years, and they are experiencing complete fountain of youth type de-aging effects. It will take you a long time to realize just how powerful this water is. They've been studying it for years, and it still floors them every day that such a calm, clear, unassuming liquid can work stupendous feats at blinding speed. Once you decide you like it, you can buy a small countertop distiller that is good for 1 or 2 people for about $200. They sell a cheaper one for $100, but it empties into a plastic catch, whereas the $200 model comes with a glass catch. They sell bigger, more convenient family-sized ones for about $500. A carbon pre-filter is a good idea for most kinds of water, but especially important for any municipal tap waters, as they contain high amounts of VOCs, or volatile organic compounds, which have a lower boiling point than water and actually make it through the distillation process. So the carbon filter catches the VOCs before they ever get to the distiller. The bigger $500 units come with a carbon pre-filter, so that is great, but for anybody who gets the smaller $200 units, which don't come with a carbon pre-filter, you need to filter it first with a Brita or a refrigerator door water dispenser. Anything which uses basic carbon filtering. There are some waters which don't have any VOCs in them, and you don't need any carbon pre-filtering. Just taste a batch and see. If the water tastes like nasty plastic even after it's been distilled, then you are tasting VOCs and need to do the pre-filtering. You can find them all over the internet, and there's some links there for some websites. Next, they will list detox symptoms. It's very important that you do not confuse these with the idea that distilled water is making you ill. One more important thing. One important thing to be aware of. The body does not make mistakes. When you read the different doctors describe how distilled water melts garbage inside of you, make sure you understand that this translates into real-world events, as in garbage will start to pour out of you. It has to come out, but better out than in, right? So this means you will have detox symptoms, and everybody is different as to how they detox and what they detox. It all depends on what you have ingested and inhaled your whole life, and what routes your body chooses to eject the garbage. It could be rashes in strange places, vomiting, diarrhea, headaches, flu-like symptoms, nausea, heavy sweating, pimples in strange places, terrible breath, and smelly armpits. But these are all good things. Be thankful that the garbage is leaving, and know that that is only temporary. You can dial in the speed too. If it's too much detox for you, back off on the solvent. Then come back to it again when you feel stronger. Remember, when they say this is the greatest solvent known to the human body, they're not kidding. Simple facts. Most people have no idea there exists a massive effort to suppress the knowledge of distilled water. If you Google distilled water, you find at about the third hit down a ridiculously titled article called "Early Death Comes from Drinking Distilled Water." It is full of nothing but pure lies and obfuscation. Drinking a gallon of distilled water every day will bring your body to its perfect state. Distilled water is magnetically attracted to all waste, debris, and inorganic substances inside you, which are then ejected. This is the only type of water which will 100% perform this act. Because it is the only water which is 100% free of garbage, most people think that spring water is awesome because it has minerals in it, but they generally never know that all those are all inorganic minerals. Spring water, river water, lake water, well water, artesian water, and so on, have been sitting in and flowing over rocks and sand and have picked up these dead minerals. These inorganic minerals will give you arthritis, cataracts, heart disease, and so on. Basically, slowly turn you into a stone over the years. You only want organic minerals which come from live food. The inorganic calcium in spring water will get stuck in between your bones and give you arthritis, whereas the organic calcium in a live orange will repair a spot in your bones. A human is only made up and can only use organic materials. There is zero position and or zero use for inorganic minerals in humans. Ask any mechanic what you should do when your car battery is weak. He or she will tell you to open up the little row of caps and to pour in distilled water. Why? Because it's the only water which is 100% pure bath of negatively charged molecules. When your battery is weak, it is in a positively charged acidic state, a wasted state, a spent state. When you pour in the negatively charged distilled water, it returns the battery to alkaline, powerful, ready to go state. What's the point of this fact? It's to help you understand how distilled water is attracted to waste, debris, and inorganic materials. These things all have a positive charge, and the negative charge of distilled water magnetically sticks to them and rips them out of the body. Remember, opposites attract. You don't want any of those old types of water. You only want new water which has not had time to pick up garbage yet. Where do I get this new water, you ask? Whenever Mother Nature produces new water, she only uses the process of distillation. She doesn't use reverse osmosis, UV filtration, carbon filters, ionizing machines, or alkalizing machines. No, she only uses the process of distillation. These new waters can be found in all precipitation, rain, mist, snow, dew, and fog, all live fruit and vegetable juices and urine. Machine-made distilled water is copying Mother Nature and is the next closest thing to any of these naturally made new waters. No other artificially made water comes anywhere close to the purity of machine-made distilled water. In fact, this is so true that the WHO, the World Health Organization, tells people not to drink distilled water. The WHO is part of the UN. The UN has a stated goal of reducing the world's population by 80%. So if you want to help the UN reduce the world's population, by all means, stay away from distilled water. If you want to live with youthfulness, regain and retain flexibility, have strong vigor, open your third eye, attain full psychic power, help form a beautiful new paradigm on earth, and ascend. Drink a gallon of distilled liquids every day. Dear water-based creatures, urine will not only make your plants grow like crazy, it will supercharge you right out of the stratosphere. There's a book called Liquid Gold, which has all the info regarding usage on plants. Basic thing for plants is to cut it. 90% water and 10% urine. Every plant goes wild on it, greener than ever, bigger than ever. Pour it at the roots and or amidst the foliage. Wow, I never knew that. As for you and your body-mind, it is the cleaner you always wished for, a liquid Drano for human pipes, a chemical destroyer. They don't care how small the nanobots think they've made themselves. A third eye decalcifier, very nice, a constant water source when there is no water. It's how one would spend 40 days and 40 nights in the desert. Look up urine therapy. It's all right there waiting to be discovered. The bad taste is only from eating bad cooked food. People who ate just raw fruit have coconut water flavored urine as clear as rainwater, and it is a pleasure to drink, believe it or not. On average, somebody with a terrible diet can achieve rainwater clear urine within 5 to 7 days of water fasting or fruit juice fasting, which is much easier and a lot of fun. Everywhere the Bible mentions the water of life or rivers of living water, they are talking about none other than urine. You know the amniotic fluid you all floated in for 9 months? It's urine. Wow! I never knew that. For the first 3 months, it's mainly your mom's urine. And then for the last 6 months, it's mainly yours. Why do you think they say the water broke? Where do you think all of your pee is going while you are in there? There's no umbilical cord attached to your genitals in there. No, that cord is connected to your intestines, which is where all waste goes. You remember how you breathe like a fish while in the womb? Guess what you're breathing? Yes, urine. Your lungs would not have formed without it. Your entire body would not have formed without it. This is the lost fountain of youth. This explains why you see cherubs and babies peeing into the water fountains all over the planet. This is nothing less than a pictogram for the fountain of youth. Well, isn't that interesting? They want you to think it's lost, so you'll believe it can only be found out buried deep in the woods somewhere, when all along it's your own fountain, your genitals. There's not just one fountain of youth on the planet, there's 7 billion and counting. Everybody comes with their very own built-in water distiller. Do you really think the Almighty Creator would put you here without the complete ability to take care of yourself? No, of course not. So that's why it's called the Fountain of Youth. When people fast for 30 days on just urine, not only do they vaporize whatever illnesses they had, but also by the time they are done with the fast, they lose 20 to 30 years in appearance. In the more than 20 books available on this subject, there are over 1,000 case histories of what happens to people when they do this. And over again, without fail, this is exactly what happens to people who dip their cup into the fountain of youth. Speaking of dipping your cup, nobody needs to look any further for the Holy Grail. There's no such thing as the Holy Grail. Let me explain. Do you remember why anybody would like to find the Holy Grail? Well, it is said that long life and full health will come to anyone who drinks from the Holy Grail. Those are the exact benefits of drinking urine. The hidden joke is that it's not the cup that's magical, it's what's in the cup. You can never find the Holy Grail because any cup or vessel or grail can become a Holy Grail if you start dipping it into the fountain of youth. So there's no such singular item as the Holy Grail. So you see, precious human creatures, urine is the ultimate human growth medium. Whatever you touch it to, it restores it to its original genetic DNA instructions. If you put it in your eyes, it becomes your eyes. If you put it on a cut on your skin, it becomes your skin. It's living liquid tissue. Wow, very interesting. The constant looping of your water creates a circle of spinning energy which triggers your Merkaba to fire up. I'm not sure what they mean by that. Constant looping. And then there's some links that you can look at, some videos, and a listing of books to read up on. I'm definitely going to be trying to drink distilled water to try to improve my health. And so awesome new information for me. And I'll attach a copy of my little video, Canadian water, homemade water distiller. Canadian Solar Water Distiller is the title of it. Thank you for watching. Marcia signing out. I'll also point a link to the article I'm referring to.
These are my homemade water distillers, which are powered by solar energy. This is so easy to make. All you need is a deep bucket or canning container, a sheet of plastic big enough to cover the lid. You need a rock and a container inside. Now I'll just show you here. You can see all the bubbles on the top of the plastic, and what happens is the rock enables the water to pool in the middle. Okay? And this one as well. I set these out last night, and if I look in the bucket, I've already got about 2 cups of water that I have distilled. So inside of the bucket, what you do is you put your container, a heavy one is best, and then you put some water in. And you only put enough water in so that your container stays solid and doesn't start to float. Okay, so I just put a big water jug inside of this one. You can see there. This is an actual canner. And so what I've done there, I'll actually open it up and show you here. Okay, this is my canner. And what I've done is I've put a jar inside and some water. And then what I do is I put the plastic over the top of it. So I'll just show you what I use to hold the plastic down. It's just elastic bands, but you need a fairly sturdy one. There's a yellow one on there because you're going to be removing it, putting it back on. And this one I've got a black and white one there. There we go. Black and white elastic. So there you have it, folks. Never be without fresh, clean water. You can use muddy water, dirty old slough water. You can use salted water from the ocean. And you never be without fresh water. Thank you for watching.